Yeah, I think we'll go ahead and start. I know usually it takes the next couple of minutes for people to join, but I really want to respect our presenters' time because there's so much we want to cover today. So everybody, welcome to day three of the Trade with Africa Business Summit. Such a pleasure, such an honor to bring this event again. My name is Toyin Umesiri. I'm the founder of the Trade with Africa Summit and the CEO of Nizaru. And today, this morning, it's my pleasure to welcome again to the platform Mr. Komi Tsowou, who is an economist and a trade expert at the African Trade Policy Center of the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, UNECA, based in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. He previously served in various roles as economic analyst in charge of international trade, commodities, and development at the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development in Geneva, Switzerland. In his various duties at the United Nations, Mr. Komi has been advising both the public and private sector actors across Africa and beyond on various issues ranging from trade, industrialization, and value chains development, including under the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, AfCFTA, commodities and market analysis to financing for development, among others. Before joining United Nations, Mr. Komi worked as analyst, financial services, and investment in Canada and as a consultant in Togo. Mr. Komi graduated in quantitative economics and also possessed an MBA in finance from University Laval in Canada. I hope I said that well. Welcome again, Mr. Komi. You have the floor. It's such an honor to have you again.
Thank you, Toyin. It's also an honor and pleasure to participate to this year's Trade with Africa Summit. Yes, so as you have rightly pointed out, I'm currently working with the African Trade Policy Center, which is embedded within the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, and our headquarters is in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. But we also have regional offices across the continent. And one of my key work streams this past year has been to oversee the support we are providing to countries implement the AfCFTA through sometimes development of AfCFTA strategies or capacity building or even sensitization across the private sector stakeholders. So today, what I'm going to do is to take us through what the AfCFTA mean for the African diaspora and other investors as well. I've decided to change a bit the way we do some of the presentation. I want to start here with three main questions. The first one being, are there African markets for made in African products? Because let's not forget that the AfCFTA also, when you create a free trade area, the main objective, ultimate objective, is to be able to trade the products that are manufactured within the area. This also applies for services. The second questions I was asking when preparing my presentation is, can we really take the AfCFTA as a game changer for African economies? Especially at this time where COVID-19 has really shown or revealed a vulnerability of African economies to international shocks. And the last and the most important point as well for such a forum like this one or a private sector summit is, what does it really take for businesses to enjoy new or expanded market opportunities under the AfCFTA? And some of these questions, I hope, will respond to some of the issues I've been getting since the last Trade with Africa Summit. So I've also tried to really present now what is happening since the AfCFTA officially started from the 1st of January of this year. So in terms of where we are, in terms of commodity dependence, when we look at the continents, despite the rhetoric about the need for the countries to really add value to commodities, the region, the continent, Africa, is still one of the continents that rely heavily on commodities. And the map I'm showing here is how we see the dependence on commodities vis-a-vis non-commodity dependent countries across sectors. When you, for example, you see agricultural, of course, there are so many countries that depend heavily on agricultural products. In Africa, we have big economies, large economy like Ethiopia, where I'm sitting now. We have other economies that are smaller than Ethiopia in terms of size, Cote d'Ivoire, Gambia, and few other countries that rely a lot on agricultural products. In terms of minerals as well, we still have so many countries, especially in Western African countries and Eastern Southern African countries that rely a lot on minerals and metals as well. Same for energy, we have many countries as well that continue to rely on the export of oil. And this has not been able to change over the years simply because the continent has not been able to add values to the commodities. And some of the key impediment is the fact that the continent is not well integrated, and tariff and non-tariff barriers have remained impediment to production and intra-African trade. Sometimes you find, we were looking last week in Senegal at the onion, and Cote d'Ivoire as one of the big importing country of onion. Sometimes you find onion from Holland cheaper than the one that are imported from maybe Mali or Burkina Faso, which means, you know, we really need to address tariff and most importantly, non-tariff barriers. That is actually what the AfCFTA is trying to do. We will see this later on. Now, again, this graph, the second graph on the right side, I have picked some of the key products for the continent and show what are the shares that are currently imported from Africa. And from petroleum to rice, to cosmetics, to cotton, it's a bit disappointing to see that the fraction of Africa imports, the fraction we import as intra-African product is very small compared to what we currently importing from the world. So this is again clear that the continent, despite existence of markets for products, the local or continental production is not enough. So that's why we continue as Africa to depend heavily on the rest of the world. So to your question, is there a market in Africa for made-in African product? Yes, because we are not able to satisfy the internal demand. I will zoom in few products, and let me start first from dairy markets. You know, Eastern Africa countries, Kenya and some others produce a lot of dairy products, even in Rwanda and others. Now, if you look at the left, your left side, export of dairy product by Eastern African region, you will see the export of dairy products are shown in green from Eastern African countries. Their exports internally within the Eastern African region, that's what is shown in green. What they export, the export of dairy products to Africa is shown in red, and the export of dairy products from Eastern African country to the world is shown in blue. What you will see here is that the blue bar, the red bar, sorry, and the green bar are quite close to each other, which means most of actually what Eastern African region export, whether to Africa or to the world, is remain mainly within Eastern African region. If you look at this and you look at the figure, the graph on your right, which shows Africa's import of dairy product by main import partners, you will see that the share of the intra-African portion is very low, while the continent import a lot of dairy products from the world. So why are we not shipping dairy products from Eastern Africa to the rest of Africa? So there are a number of issues that are well documented. There are a number of trade barriers, including, for example, non-tariff barriers. And the fact that in Eastern Africa, there is a regional economic community, EAC, make trade intra-region very profitable. So what is happening, for example, within Eastern Africa is what we want to do now at African level through the African Continental Free Trade Area. I also want to zoom a bit on tea, which is something, a product that is consumed widely, but produced also a lot in some of the African countries, including Kenya, Rwanda, Tanzania, Cote d'Ivoire, and some of the other countries. Now, when we look at import of tea by African region, of course, one of the main regions in Africa that import mainly tea is Northern African region. So, which means, of course, there is a demand within the continent for tea product. But if we look on the right side, the tea consumed in Africa, where they are coming from region, when you look at Northern Africa, you can see that the tea consumed in Northern Africa came mainly from Africa, from the continent, although most of it, a high share come from Asia. When you look at Eastern Africa, of course, because most of the tea is produced in the region, and because we have so many countries in the region that are part of, that already part of a free trade area, Eastern African community, for example. So they import, they trade a lot when it comes to tea. Now, when you move to, for example, Central Africa, most of their tea coming from Asia or the European Union, and same for Western Africa. So this also shows that proximity is important when it comes to trading with each other. Eastern Africa and Northern Africa are closely linked through geographical proximity and also some trade agreement through COMESA. This is not the case for Central Africa, but again, what I want to share is this trend where the over-reliance of external partners is not really helping creating a lot of wealth across the continent. So the AfCFTA really want to support the continent achieve more production and intra-African trade. So is the AfCFTA a game changer? So briefly here, I want to come on what is in the AfCFTA agreement. So first, I want to share with everyone again that the AfCFTA goes beyond traditional free trade area and cover not only trade in goods, but also trade in services. And beyond those issues will cover intellectual property rights, investment, competition policies, and e-commerce. When it comes to trade in goods, the expectation is that there will be a progressive elimination of tariffs over 5 years when it comes to some groups of countries, which will be non-LDCs, and 10 years of elimination of tariff for LDCs. Services also will be liberalized so that a service supplier provider in one country can also provide services in other countries or region. And of course, intellectual property right, investment, competition, and e-commerce are also dealt with within the context of the AfCFTA. Now, where are we with the AfCFTA? As some of you are aware, the agreement, the AfCFTA was expected to start from actually started from the 1st of January 2021. This year, it was supposed to start 1st of July last year, but because of COVID issues and restriction, it didn't start. But it started officially from the 1st of January, sorry, this year. And I have presented the countries that signed, ratified, and deposited the instrument of ratification. So far, 37 countries have ratified the agreement. 17 additional countries have only signed it, not ratified yet, and only one country, Eritrea, has not yet signed the AfCFTA agreement. Now, what this means is, yes, there are a lot of countries on board from very largest and biggest economy like South Africa, Nigeria, and so, Egypt, and so, which have all ratified the agreement. But those that have only signed are also in the process of ratification. We have also done a lot of work when it comes to the AfCFTA in terms of the key sectors when it comes to goods that will see that will be winners, the quick winners, or the highest winners in terms of value addition. Those sectors range from vehicle and transport equipment, energy, metals and machinery, agro-food products such as sugar, milk, and dairy products, chemicals as well. This is one of the industry that will see huge potential when it comes to the transformation, production, and trade under the AfCFTA. Textile, one of the key potential winner from the AfCFTA. Woods and paper products as well. When it comes to services, yes, ICT and digital, I think this is something we are seeing happening, and this trend will continue because of the way COVID-19 has changed the way we produce or we trade. Infrastructure and logistics, very important, because the infrastructure and logistics will be key determinant of competitiveness of the economies. So as enabler to the AfCFTA, or as self-productive industries, we expect normally to see a huge investment in infrastructure and logistics across the continent to support AfCFTA implementation. Finance, banking, I think this is also one of the key areas, because without accessing, low-cost finance, investor will not be able to compete with external, external partners or external competitors within the AfCFTA, and there are huge opportunities to scale up because access to finance is still quite limited across the continent. Education, skills development, I think we have seen this as well when it's come to respond quickly to shocks or pandemic, when it's come to health issues. Health sector, I think, is something that it will certainly be scaling up. There are a number of projects currently aiming to develop a health sector across countries. And some of the countries like South Africa, Ghana, Zimbabwe, Kenya, and Egypt have already, a kind of some industries that will need more support to grow, and many more. We can also talk about tourism, certainly after the COVID, and so these are some of the key sectors we have seen. Of course, I will not be able to go into details on specific subsectors, but we'll be happy to continue offline the discussion with anyone that will see or will want to see which are the promising markets in terms of prospecting and so. Now, I also want to also tell us that it's possible for the continent also to be able to transform its minerals. The pictures here that I've shown is something that is happening in Gabon currently, where one of the companies in the country has been able to set up a factory, a mining complex in 2015. Now they are processing some value-added products for manganese minerals. So, which means, this is possible, but to be able to do it, the country has to invest a lot in energy so that the mining complex have access to power to be able to function well. In terms of other opportunities across the continent, I've listed some countries here, and the minerals, copper and copper products, Zambia and DRC. We are working currently with DRC, for example, to see how they can set up, special economic zones to be able to exploit or, add value to some of their minerals. This is a process. It's not going to happen overnight, but we have some time to be also patient. That's what I was discussing with Toyin just before the opening, that the process, transforming goods or commodities within the continent, considering the challenges and the new ones that are brought by COVID, will need time. So we need to be patient as well as private sector, but we need to engage consistently with the government, because most of these transformations that are happening are being done in many countries with, a partnership between private and public sector, because public sector need to set the environment, but it's also up to the private sector to tell the government what is needed. And there are a number of now forums that are also created for the diaspora. It's not enough, but there are forums created for the diaspora to be able to influence national level actions, intervention, and policies. And such summit is also an opportunity to do it. Yes, I always believe, and I think it's important to also see that the AfCFTA will certainly change how the oil is produced across the continent, because at present, Africa still imports mainly refined petroleum product, while at the same time exporting crude oil. For example, lubricant demand in Africa is expected to rise by almost 15%, about 13% over the next, let's say, from 2020 to 2025, due to the demands in terms of car. And some projections suggest that from we should expect by 2014 car demand in terms of market in Africa to reach about 135 million cars. So there is a huge, demand in terms of those oil. But again, these are opportunity for the AfCFTA, and we do hope that there will be more than, more investors beyond Dangote that will set up factories to refine petroleum products. But again, in terms of strategy, how do we make sure, the AfCFTA opportunities are harnessed by the businesses? I think that's what is very important, and I have been receiving a lot of questions on this matter. A free trade is there, but not all products that are traded will then enjoy the lower tariffs under the AfCFTA. Usually for maybe those that are not trades, especially, or are not very familiar with this, there are rules that will define under which condition a processed product will then benefit from the low tariff under the AfCFTA or under any free trade agreement. And those rules are usually called rules of origins. Sometimes the private sector, as CEO, for example, or director, might not understand it, but they will then rely on specialists, rule of origin specialists, to understand this. Basically, the rule of origins are a set of rules that define the economic nationality of a product. And I will let us move through some examples here. Let's imagine, for example, that I have a cocoa grown, cocoa beans grown in Cote d'Ivoire, and they are processed. Maybe they are shipped to Ghana to be processed into chocolate, or they are processed in Cote d'Ivoire, and then they are exported to Ethiopia, the final product, chocolate. Now, this, in terms of rule of origins, the chocolate, we can say, is fully processed or obtained within the AfCFTA because Cote d'Ivoire, Ghana, and Ethiopia all have ratified the AfCFTA agreement. So under those conditions, the chocolate that is processed with cocoa grown in Cote d'Ivoire or Ghana and shipped to Ethiopia will then receive or benefit the lower tariffs under the AfCFTA agreement. If you bring a chocolate that may be manufactured in Brazil and you only do the packaging in Cote d'Ivoire, so you have not processed enough, the final product to be able to enjoy the AfCFTA benefits. Second examples, imagine you have a cocoa that is grown and processed in cocoa butter in Brazil. This is, a kind of the previous example I was giving, and you ship the cocoa butter from Brazil to be processed to be packaged in Cote d'Ivoire, and you want to re-export this to South Africa. Because most of the processing happen in Brazil, you will not enjoy the AfCFTA benefit. You will have to pay the normal prevailing tariff. Then there will be no application of AfCFTA low tariff under these circumstances. But broadly speaking, if, let's say, I'm mixing X% or in terms of value, X% of cotton from Burkina Faso with Y or Z% of cotton processed in cotton from India, here I'm mixing two products, one from AfCFTA country, Burkina Faso, and one from non-AfCFTA country, that is India. When I obtain cotton yarn, can I export the cotton yarn to Cameroon, which has also ratified the agreement under preferential treatment, low tariff of the AfCFTA? Basically, what the AfCFTA rule of origin will tell you, they will determine the value of X and the value of Y that, that will permit you to consider the product as made within the AfCFTA area and enjoy the tariff preferences. So this is also to highlight that as a private sector, it's important to understand what are the implications when you are producing within a free trade area within the AfCFTA. Additionally to this, a lot of African countries have also some existing free trade areas when, for example, ECOWAS region. So it's important to also see under which trade area you will be producing in. Of course, sometimes it can be very difficult to find your way as a private businesses, but it's important, and there are a number of experts now that can guide you when it comes to rule of origin, AfCFTA, and others. And we at the UN Economic Commission for Africa, this is something we also support private sector to do without any cost, or we can also redirect you if we know some expert that can help you prospect your market. I'm finishing soon. In terms of liberalizing services, I think this is one area also people usually have difficulty to understand when they will tell you, for example, I open my cabinet in Togo, I open my cabinet in Ghana, I'm not able to supply or deliver my consultancy services, for example, in South Africa. So what happened actually when it comes to services, there are many ways to supply the services, and depend of each way, the country can decide to open one mode or other modes of supply. For example, the first mode of supply is usually called cross-border supply. You are very familiar with all this, maybe not with the technical world. The cross-border supply actually will mean that the service flows will move from one territory of the one AfCFTA member to another one, which means, for example, if you are telecom company or service provider, and then based in Ghana, and then you are supplying your services to businesses based in South Africa. So this is actually cross-border supply. Now, if South Africa decide to open it, mode one, that means if you are based or you have a headquarter in one of the AfCFTA member, you should be able to go and without physical presence, you should supply your service in other countries. So it's very important to understand in each country you want to provide your service in, how they are liberalizing their services, and how your target market is also liberalizing their services. And then before you start investing in specific countries. Another one is consumption abroad, which means as a consumer, you move to consume a service in other countries. This is very common when it comes to tourism, for example. You travel from Ghana to South Africa for the tourism services in South Africa. So depending on the way both countries liberalize in terms of their services, in terms of mode two, will impact your businesses. 3, physical commercial presence, which means if a country allow you to establish in territorial presence through ownership or lease from another country. And so the last one is, of course, presence of natural person, when a consultant or a doctor will have to go to another country to be able to provide services freely without going to all the regulation in that specific country. So these are very rich, but very important to be able to manage or to devise your strategy as you penetrate or you want to access AfCFTA market. And importantly, investment, production, trade facilitation, they are very important to understand what are the instruments of trade facilitation. Important also to see, what are the trade-related infrastructure in the country. And of course, import defense sometimes means how each country can support, your own industry to produce. So there are lots, of course, but we cannot go into all the details today, but we'll be happy to continue the discussion on the trade platform. I think this Toyin has a very formidable, very interesting trade platform. That's a lot happened there, and also a lot of happened on LinkedIn and others. So I would like to stop here. I thank you very much for attention and happy to take any question. Thank you very much.
Wow, Komi, fantastic. Okay, can you stop sharing and then let's talk?
Yes.
Oh
yes,
my gosh.
sure.
First of all, Komi, thank you again. You've been part of this platform for a while now.
Always a pleasure.
Also on the AfCFTA roundtable, I'm still trying to decide when we would do the next roundtable, which is more of bringing AU and yourself and World Bank back to the table and say, okay, since the last year that we've met, what's the latest, greatest, right? That's the purpose of that dedicated AfCFTA roundtable. But everything
Yes.
that you just showed us, I really like it a lot. You know why? You've made it, you keep improving in terms of this is landing it where it was before. We were all still wondering, right? There was still AfCFTA at a large level. Like 2 years ago, we had His Excellency share with us. I think we're getting really close. And I thank you for your advice, earlier before people joined in terms of patience. We have to learn patience. So I agree. Um, One thing though that I want you to please shed some light on. AfCFTA, in my mind, is for Africa, for Africans, and by Africans. However, we
Mm-hmm.
also need to understand that foreign players are looking, they are also excited in a way. We've rallied the troops, with AfCFTA, but they are wondering, how do they invest in AfCFTA? And I know there are nuances that you and I have spoken about that people, honestly, when I share it with them, they're simply surprised. Nobody has told them
Mm-hmm.
how the mechanism has to work if you're a non-African. Can you share a little bit? I know it's a lot, but just talk a
Yes,
little bit
sure.
about that.
Okay. So one thing I also want to raise here, I want to also, the AfCFTA aims to be for made in African products, but AfCFTA is not for Africans. As an African speaking, I would have loved the AfCFTA to be for Africans, to create values for Africans. But we are also in a global world today, and we depend on each other. Within the AfCFTA, you will not find all the expertise, you will not find all the raw materials. So the AfCFTA is not only for African investors. Actually, there is no limitation on where the investment shall come from. There is, of course, negotiations on investment to see how we can improve or we can scale up intra-African investment. But today, what is very important is, are you complying with the AfCFTA rules of origins? That's why I spend a bit more time to go into details. You can be based in the US, in Canada, in Europe, anywhere in Asia, as far as you set up a business and you are able to produce and transform inputs or intermediate goods to comply with the requirement in terms of percentage of value content within the continent, automatically you will get the AfCFTA, let's call it passport for your product, which is the rule of origin. No one will ask for your passport as an investor, but they will ask for the passport of your product. That's why it's very important wherever we are to understand what are the implications in terms of rules of origin. And sometimes you can produce under the AfCFTA rule of origin and at the same time target also EU markets if you comply with both, like Economic Partnership Agreement and AfCFTA rules of origin, or even AGWA. If you comply with AGWA, you can export your textile product to the US market, and you can still export to the other African market as well. So the key here is the rule of origin. So the success of the AfCFTA will also partly depends on the rule of origins. Now, what will then determine you producing in Africa is also one thing will be the cost of trading or cost of importing, sourcing raw materials within the continent or outside the continent. And as a business, if it's cheaper to source your inputs outside the continent and pay the duties in Africa, you will do that instead of having duty free within AfCFTA. But that's why now a lot of countries are working to really streamline non-tariff barriers to reduce the trade costs related to non-tariff barriers. So I hope this, clarify a bit in terms of investor. Yeah. What is most important is the rule of origin.
Is the rule of origin. So in a way, so thank you for that. So in a way, let's just play this out. An American business that exists, say in Nigeria,
yes,
that does not comply to the rules of origin cannot export out of Nigeria to Ghana under AfCFTA.
Exactly. But you can still comply with ECOWAS.
Okay,
yeah.
they'll comply with ECOWAS, but
ECOWAS, or you pay duty.
yeah, but if that same American business in Lagos, Nigeria, complies, and that business is 100% owned.
Yes.
And if they comply and retool and comply with all the rules of origin for AfCFTA, they can ship to AfCFTA eligible countries.
Exactly. Yes, you are totally right. A business can be owned fully by a non-AfCFTA member states citizen. What is very important, are you creating the value within the AfCFTA region? If you are creating enough value, which is determined by the rules of origin, then you will get it. I didn't go into detail because the rule of origin within the AfCFTA is not abroad. Like usually in ECOWAS, there is a value percentage of 30% across the industry. Within the AfCFTA, they are product-based rule of origin, which means the rules vary to each specific products and product. So that's why it's good to have it. It's not published officially yet because there are a few issues still that are being discussed: textile, automotive industry, and some few others. Once they are completed, they will only be available online for everyone. For now, one can just go and talk to trade experts, whether at country level, at the AfCFTA Secretariat based in Accra, and others. They can also link up with you. I know you have a very great network across the continent. You can also assist them to get specific information on the rule of origin applied to specific products, because this is a very important decision with regard to where to invest.
Exactly. I'm telling you, part of my job or my focus is in all of the noise. When I say noise, and all of the, because it's quite robust, we have to filter down to which one matters to business leaders or not. And the one we just talked about, for sure, I think that's something we need to call out and raise out there. So let me share a few comments we're already receiving. This was excellent. Thank you so much. This was a brilliant presentation. You're no stranger to the platform, but I want you to make sure we clap for you. Since you're not in the room, we would have clapped for you. Farai says, this was a brilliant presentation. Thank you so much for the insight. Indeed, great education. Thanks from Malawi. Big thank you so much. Important information. Now, let's see if there are questions. Please start dropping your questions. The direction was to give us 10-15 minutes to really just dive into Q&A. Mr. Maker People says, okay, this is a question now. How do we start the passport for the rules of origin? I'm just reading the question as it's put out there. Or how should we have asked that question? Maybe there's a different way we needed to have asked that question.
Okay. Shall I ask, or shall we? Okay, let me take that one, the passport.
Please take that one.
We start the passport for the rules of origin. Okay. Norm, what happened in each country, there is an official authority in charge of delivering the rule of origin, certificates, which we are calling here rule of origin passport. Now, the entity vary. Like in Gambia today, we learn is the Chamber of Commerce. In Togo, it's through the Minister of Trade. In Cote d'Ivoire, is Minister of Industry. So it's good first to know which institution or which authority is delivering the certificates. You go and request the authority to share that you want to produce toward maybe AfCFTA market or any market. What are the existing agreements? Even you want to produce to Asia, you have to go and ask them, is there any agreement between us, the country here, and this other country or AfCFTA? Then they will tell you what are the rules as well, to compliance rules. Then you will see within your production system if you are already complying with it, or what investment is needed to be able to comply with it. Sometimes the costs, usually most of the time, it can be the cost component that you ensure that maybe 50, I'm just giving an example, 50% of cost is not from imported goods outside the free trade area. That means you need to import maybe the raw materials as well as the labor force from within the AfCFTA area. So if you comply, you then submit your file, and then normally they will even come to investigate, to check your businesses, your factory, and so, and they will deliver. Now, when they deliver the certificate of origin, it can happen that you get the certificate of origin in Ghana, but the South Africans will still want to check if this is a normal process. So they have the right to question because there can be also fraud in some of those rule of origin certificates. So they can also contact the competent authority in the delivery exporting country but because that's why the AfCFTA will certainly have to play a big role to support, compliance to rule of origin, to avoid, so many level of compliance verification. And we are also, I myself, I wrote recently in an article where I'm really insisting on how do we make electronic certificate of origin very important, while all the file are uploaded on a platform, and the importing country will be able to access all those information. So I hope I explained a bit, but it's very technical rule of origin, but we can have the discussion offline as well.
Yeah, Mr. Komi, send me that paper. I would love to see, because as you were speaking, I was kind of surprised
I will share
that there's no centralized system being put in place to manage this. So there's going to be a couple more questions for you. Exactly. But we have to, in the world of blockchain and everything, we have to figure this out.
Exactly.
Okay, the couple more questions. I see Bernard also raising his hands. Let me give you a moment. He's a member of the platform from Ghana. Bernard, come on up and quickly be concise with your question, and then we'll pull a few more questions before the time runs out. Bernard?
Yeah, hello.
Quickly, please. Yes.
Tommy, thank you very much. How do we, where is the integration between, let's say, the sub-regional trade agreement, let's say when it comes to ECOWAS, ETLS, ECOWAS Trade Liberalization Scheme, and AfCFTA? Are we going to run concurrently, or AfCFTA will be super over ETLS? I just want to know, how are we going to integrate both? Because there are different set of criteria, or in terms of country of origin, what to really follow. Won't it be cumbersome for ECOWAS trade states and then the Africa Union as a whole? That's my question.
Thanks, Bernard. This is a good point. I think Toyi, we were discussing those points as well recently. You're totally right. What the AfCFTA is saying in terms of the agreement, saying that the regional economic communities are the building blocks of the AfCFTA. But actually what is happening is, when you see the rules, there are a lot of convergence, but also divergence in the rules. So in the short term, yes, unfortunately, the rules ECOWAS and AfCFTA will be run in parallel. But the hope is that there will be work, a lot of work, so that the rules are harmonized in the medium to long term. So as a private sector, as I said, there are ways, there are elements where rules are convergent. But if you want to produce, it's important to know as well if with your processing under the ECOWAS, at the same time, are you also complying with the AfCFTA rule of origin? If that is the case, then it's very good. So, but I will not say it's possible in many sectors, depending on the percentage of value contents or the rule of origins. So the rule of origin of the AfCFTA are product specific. So some of them are convergent. There might be divergence as well. But even country level, sometimes you go, the entity dealing with the ECOWAS rule of origin can be the Ministry of Trade, while the Ministry of Industry will be dealing with rule of origin or of other agreements with the EU or I don't know, with Asia, which also create confusion for the private sector. In some countries, they decide to leave everything to the Chamber of Commerce, which is a kind of one-stop shop where you get all the information. So the process also of integrating or harmonizing will happen, and hopefully at regional level, but also at national level. But you're totally right. In the short term, yes, it's going to be a bit costly as additional layers, but there are efforts to harmonize those rules in the medium to long term.
Yeah,
thanks.
I definitely suspect Mr. Bernard will be reaching out to you after this. It's one of those, you're both on the platform, and sure. he supports
exactly.
from a market entry into Ghana as well. So this is something he has to get his hands around. Correct, Bernard? He has to, yeah, this is something.
I would definitely reach out. It's very exciting. I had just one question. I don't know if I'll be permitted, or I'm still more time. If not, that
you can ask it, but I'm not going to be sure if we are able to answer it. But maybe it's one of those questions we will table, but ask it quickly.
Okay, Komi, my second question is the idea of the free trade area is for the economic liberation of the African. That's first. So what is the point in allowing a foreign investor who is either on the continent or off the continent, but processing on the continent to do, knowing after all, the money will be repatriated back to his country at the end of the day?
That's it, Mr. Komi.
Yes,
back to my question.
I will say,
I rest my case here.
Thank you, Bernard. That question, I think we should ask our head of state.
Thank you.
Yes, but yeah. So it's a good question, but as I said, the investment protocol, which will be another protocol under the AfCFTA, will see what are specific provisions that can be made to encourage intra-African in investment. But don't forget, countries are also can use what is called local value content to promote local investment as well. So this is, so as far as you converge with those existing rules, this is something that can be done.
Right. And that question is a follow-up to mine, right? And that was why I was pushing a little bit, because I can't remember where I've heard this, and this is something you and I can take offline, is that the foreign investor has to partner with an African to benefit from AfCFTA. That's what I've heard in the past. But that's something we have to look into, because that capital flight, it's a potential, right? If you're benefiting from exporting across the continent, and there's no investment protocol that says you cannot take that money out of the continent for the next 5, 6 years, 7 years, if you benefited from AfCFTA. If that's not in place, then definitely Africa becomes a cash cow. So it's something you and I would definitely dig deeper. Okay, go on. You wanted to react.
Yeah, no. Yeah, so far, AfCFTA will not limit who is investing as far as you compare rule of origins.
Got it.
But what is being done, each country has its own law when it comes to investment as well, especially for foreign investors. There are countries like Cote d'Ivoire that are more liberalized than a country like Ethiopia, for example. So that one is still for now at national level, but there are also a number of bilateral investment treaty, multilateral framework that will guide investments. Yeah.
Yes, yes. Fantastic. I want to see if I can pull in 2 more questions quickly. Mr. Abrafi, he said, is there a place to go and research the countries in Africa and their rules depending on the AfCFTA rules? Is there some resources you can guide people to go check out?
For now, there are a lot of research that's been developed under the AfCFTA, which are not ready yet. Once they are ready, we will put them online. But so far, you can reach out to AfCFTA Secretariat in Accra, or us, or even to the platform if you need specific question. And we are happy to help where to find relevant information. Some of them exist at the international level, International Trade Center website as well. So yeah. So there are resources, but there is not yet a kind of compendium of info where you can find all the information. But this will be done by the AfCFTA Secretariat.
Right. And please, for those new to AfCFTA or new to the platform, if you just search in our platform, the Nazaru.trade, just type AfCFTA, you'll be able to catch up on 45-page presentation by His Excellency Ambassador Muchanga on what the AfCFTA is, the vision and everything. You also see the AfCFTA roundtable that Mr. Komi, World Bank, Brookings Institute, African Union also contributed on. You see there are some resources we're pulling together on the platform. So just do a search on AfCFTA and you'll immediately be able to see. We also do some training and all of that. So I know we've been on this journey, but some people are just joining us right now. There's one more question I want to quickly take. Mr. Komi, thank you so much. You've been so fantastic. Mr. Stanley Ray says, how does the import-export balance, for example, of coffee compare to tea? He said he was surprised to see tea highlighted, but not coffee. Can we see that intra-Africa trade or versus outside, like the same data you pulled that you showed us a few commodities? Where could you go to dive deeper, for example, on coffee?
Yes, for coffee, I just decided to highlight on some few and promising commodities. I haven't picked coffee this time because some of the analysis we have done is Africa is not yet a big, coffee producers, and we are working with some countries as well. So we want to focus on some of the, the quick products like shea butter that is used in cosmetics now across the continent, which is very important, that is produced in Western. And those products are a quick win for SMEs as well. But the picture for coffee is a bit different, but I will be happy to provide also the picture because we have detailed data on the export, import of coffee and some of the value added to coffee from one country to another, whether raw or roasted coffee and so on. So.
Wow, fantastic.
The picture is not similar, but we can support, yes.
Yes, and thank you so much. Mr. Komi is one of the technical experts that have made himself available on the platform. So I encourage people to take advantage. You can search for him, you can message him. He's made himself available, and I really do appreciate that partnership. There are also other government officials on the platform, and I want to take this moment to also acknowledge, the presence of representatives from different African countries on the policy side. Thank you so much. I know in partnership with African Union, the embassies are well represented. Thank you so much. We are this platform is really for decision makers at the end of the day, people that can use this information and implement it. So Mr. Komi, parting words for now, because this doesn't end here. We still continue, right? But what are your
Yes.
parting words right now?
Thank you.
Toye, I beg you, can we have
Who's that?
It's Bernard, can we have a race where we can find data on trade? If you can help us
Yes.
as a resource on that. Thank you.
Okay. So
I will share the one link just now.
Okay. So he's going to share some, and then definitely part of the work that I'm doing is to make sure that we give people, right, our community, places to go, and we can guide them in terms of how to tap resources and who to go to. And that's one of the reasons this happens only once a year, that we highlight this. But Mr. Komi has been on the platform for at least a good year, right? You've been with us for a good year, but this is also another opportunity for more people to leverage this incredible resource. Thank you again. Okay, so you just typed the link right there. So everybody can see it in the chat.
But yes, just to add that those are a bit complex data centers. So if you need if you want support to be able to access, please you can reach out, and then we can also support you to extract specific data you might need.
Yeah, and finally, Mr. Komi, you need to start letting me know everybody using your time. I know you've made yourself available and I appreciate it. And I know you've asked me in the past to help you organize because you were being bombarded quite a bit. But please just let me know if you need what we could also. Yeah, you had a lot of people reach out, but what we could also do, we could bring you back in our monthly meeting and dive deeper, and the topic would only be AfCFTA, because we need to start separating fact from fiction, right? So you are always welcome.
Yes,
definitely. Thank you so much. So we're gradually going to shift.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, thanks.
Thank you. God bless you.